I feel like I have to walk this way because of the music. I maybe should have checked with them. Can I just say, first of all, this is my very first Makers, and I am here for it. Isn't this amazing? My heart is so full. My head is full of information. I've been making notes like a mad woman. What a joy to be with you all today, and particularly gratifying for me to be part of this next topic. We have listened to some really great conversations, very thought-provoking conversations, important ones about bodily autonomy. The next conversation is actually another dimension of that very important topic. Hair. How much time do you spend this morning doing your hair? No lie, we're safe here. How long? None? No big deal? Yeah, well, it's a lot with this, you can imagine. But the question I have for you is, do you associate hair as part of bodily autonomy? It is when you think about it holistically. It's part of the whole being. It's part of our whole person, and for us women especially. An ongoing and pressing issue that's, again, showing up in the news as it does periodically. We saw it last week in Texas, a Houston high school student by the name of Daryl George. That's what we're here to discuss, the Crown Act. Likely you already know that CROWN stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. Now, sure, the Crown Act is about making sure that our workplaces and schools are inclusive and fair, but the cultural significance of the Crown movement goes beyond laws and policies that have children being sent home from school or people getting fired from their jobs. It's really about changing attitudes and perceptions, one conversation at a time. It's really about truly embracing diversity and understanding that there is beauty in every strand, every coil, every braid, every lock, and Bantu knot. I'm thrilled to have two partners in my conversation today, and I want you to welcome them warmly, as you've done with everybody else. We have Senior Brand Manager of Engagement and Social Impact for Dove, Miss Lauren Baker. Come on out here. A vision in green. The music does something to you, doesn't it? Oh, let's see what this one has up her sleeve. Actress, producer, activist, somebody familiar to this stage, Karen Pittman. I knew she'd deliver. It's really a shame she's so shy. So I think it goes without saying, I know the three of us are of one accord when it comes to our crowns, right? I know we are. No room for discrimination, only acceptance and love and self-expression. We're gonna show you a quick little video. Please look to the screen. Lauren brought along a video for us to feast our eyes on.
Maybe just a blip. My dad always told me that I should love my hair. So I did.
Wait for me right here for a second. Excuse me, sir. We have a strict hair policy here. I'm afraid I can't let you attend school today.
Don't forget your hat.
Even when it wasn't easy.
We talked about this. You can't wear braids if you want to walk at graduation.
Even when no one else did. My dad always told me that I should fight for my hair. So I am.
Beautiful. Once again, I know, right? Right? And here's the thing, we all know, I remember first seeing Dove jump into those conversations about shape and real women and real bodies. What made Dove decide this is a fight we want to attach our names to?
Yeah, so Dove has always stood for many years, many decades, for beauty inclusivity, and we're actually celebrating our 20-year anniversary of the Campaign for Real Beauty,
Yes.
which is the women in underwear, if everybody kind of remembers that, but it's something that we've had a longstanding commitment for, and narrow beauty standards oftentimes really prohibit people, Black women especially, brown women, of kind of having a positive experience of beauty. And so knowing that we're committed to that positive experience of beauty and the experiences you saw in that film, but there's countless stories of both kind of macroaggressions or hardcore discrimination in workplaces and schools, but also sometimes the microaggressions that Black women face as it relates to our hair. And so knowing that we want to have that positive experience of beauty, this was something that it was an obvious space that we needed to really fight for.
And more than just the nice ad, which is powerful, but actually co-founding the Crown Coalition to pass the Crown Act.
Yeah.
Like putting your money where the mouth is.
Yes, and I'd say we co-founded the Crown Coalition in 2019. It's now a group of, I want to say, over 110 organizations, community organizations, advocacy organizations. So we heard about the power of the collective. It's not just us as a brand making a difference. It is the entire community, local organizations that are embedded in communities, and that's what is needed to happen to have it passed in 23 states, which is phenomenal, but it means that there's still
more to go,
and needing to pass it nationwide.
27 more states. I mean, I think for me, seeing that is understanding from a very young age, as I experienced that, is understanding that hair discrimination is race discrimination. It's the same thing, and you can see in the face of that child as embodied in that story, that the visceral effect that it has on you as a human being, being set aside and told that you can't participate. It is a real form of race discrimination. I think it's something very important for our allies and our advocates to start thinking about the ways that we narrow our colleagues or those that we work with based upon what their hair looks like. I think it's a very important.
Well, and that brings me to talk to you about the fact that we're both people in front of the camera.
Right.
And I want to know from you what that experience has been like navigating. It's one thing when you're sitting here, the three of us can have a conversation in shorthand, but when you are the person, maybe the only one in the room, asking for support to have your hair done, for example.
Right.
Talk to me how you've navigated that world, those conversations in a way that is effective.
Yeah, I think it's been a big conversation for actresses in Hollywood and all over the country, so much so that our union, SAG-AFTRA, had a strike over this very issue and made advances with studios and networks and production companies that said this has to be, if you have a person of color on your set who's acting in your show, you have to provide them with a hair person who will service their hair. This is how deep this level of discrimination has affected television and film and theater industry here in the United States. So it's been big. I've had to work like any other actress of color has had to work to make sure that they're heard around this issue.
What did that look like in terms of protecting your own self-expression as an individual and as an artist in those early days of having to sort of stand up and say, look, I'm gonna need some support here?
Well, I'm fortunate in that I worked in New York City, and it's very hard to go to a set in New York City and there not be people of color there or who have interacted with people of color. But once I started working in Los Angeles and in Hollywood, it was taken for granted that the work that I do to look the way, based upon how I look, that I would come to set with this conversation already happening versus my white female peers who just show up with their hair, whatever, and they're getting it blended doing, I'm like, okay, well, twist, and do you have any of this product? And so on and so. I don't go in and just work on the character, right?
Yeah.
I don't have the opportunity to just explore my craft as an actor, as my other colleagues do. I have to come in with a full set of educating and talking and that sort of, that level of, it feels like disrespect, actually. It's what it feels like as an actor.
I love data, but this is a number I do not love. Dove's research shows something like 80% of Black women are likely to change their hair, their natural hair, to meet societal norms. That is just a number that hurts my heart. How do we change that statistic from your vantage point?
Yeah, so I think, of course, laws like the Crown Act are always helpful to protect against that. So, and as we mentioned, it needs to pass nationwide. There's also a cultural thing that needs to happen of how we define professionalism, right? And I think oftentimes it's defined by Eurocentric beauty standards, and that can be straighter hair. And oftentimes we as Black women have a pressure to straighten our hair, and that kind of can when you're relying on heat damage or where specific products or chemicals, et cetera. And I think oftentimes we're doing that to conform to what is seen as professional. And so I think part of it is shifting and reevaluating what professional looks like in the workplace, making sure that the grooming policies at a minimum aren't defining locks and braids and these styles that are so central to our history, to our identity, to our health, as being unprofessional. That I think is a baseline, but kind of shifting the perceptions and the attitudes and the understanding of our culture and our hair is very important, especially for everyone in this room that works at companies, that works in spaces where you can kind of shift the mindset of what does a professional look like.
You know, I think it was Gretchen Carlson that said earlier, it's easier to get bipartisan support for something rather than expect societal norms to shift. That's a slow moving, but that's the hope, that those societal norms will change so that the next generation in schools, you know, the next generation of actors will have that level of expectation.
Well, this is what I like about the Crown Act, because it's a law.
Right.
And Jay Smith Cameron was talking about the effect that states' laws have on the way we live our everyday life. And if there is a law that says that they cannot treat this young African-American girl or this young African-American boy with locks in a certain way, then they can't, the threat is you will be punished. Right? And that's what we need in order to make sure that people not just grow up with a certain amount of self-respect in their humanity, but they're also able to operate in the world as their full self, as we all want to do as Americans, right?
You know, I was thinking about it. I think I mentioned it again, the student in
Texas.
Houston.
Houston, yeah.
You know, you think about this young man at this point of his life is told that he does not, because he doesn't adhere to the school policies, that's where that needs to be updated. But the thing is, this happens periodically, right? We get one of these stories in the headlines. I know better than others. These stories are in the headlines, and then there's a bit of fire and there's a bit of passion, and then sort of it falls to the next headline. How do you keep momentum nationally? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think so.
I mean, you make a good point, right? I mean,
yeah. So I think the stories that need to be like, I feel very fortunate to be on a brand that really cares about this and that has been championing this from day one. I think I would love for more organizations, more people with platforms to be raising awareness.
Does it sometimes feel like y'all are outliers on your own?
And we're trying to bring people along with us, right?
Sure.
And so I don't know if folks saw, we had a campaign last year called Black Hair is Professional, where we partnered with LinkedIn to help specifically within workplaces kind of raise awareness of the Crown Act, as well as create more inclusive. We had DEI courses that we were giving for free. So slowly we're trying to get other businesses to kind of join us in this movement. But I think it's the voices that are so powerful, and making sure that we as citizens of the world, awareness is still quite low, to be honest, of the Crown Act. And so I think the more that we can kind of shout out the rooftops that a law that can change this exists, we can then shift public opinion.
Well, and conversation like this with makers like you. And so actually, I'm going to give you the challenge, dear Karen, to a woman that is sitting in this audience or can hear the sound of my voice and does not have textured hair, is not African American, doesn't face the same challenges when trying to get support around matters of hair, or isn't facing hair discrimination. Make the case of why they need to be part of this as well.
Well, I mean, I think the best case is what we've already talked about, that hair discrimination is race discrimination. And I think it's important for all of us to get behind that. I talked about this earlier in the day. It takes a coalition of us. It's not just going to be one company. It's not going to be just one group of women who are going to make a shift in our society. I think all of us have to be on board, white, Black, Latino, Asian, all of us have to come together to make a change that's going to impact not just us and our colleagues, but our children and our colleagues' children, et cetera, et cetera. And we can do it in this room. We're makers, we can do it.
What's your challenge to the women here today, Lauren? What's their call to action?
Well, sign the petition, please, first, if you haven't done that yet. You can do that on dove.com/crown and thecrownact.com. Second, I think it's interrogate your biases, right? And I think it kind of goes back again to what you perceive as being professional, and really understanding does how somebody wears their hair really have any bearing on their ability to learn? And this is especially in the case with Gerald George, does this man's locks have any impact on how he or the people around him are learning, on his or the people around him, their safety? The answer is no. So really interrogating kind of what these so-called neutral grooming policies and kind of associations really have, because they have a very tangible impact, right, economically, if you're getting fired from work because of your hair, educationally, if you're a child and you're getting kicked out of school. Like, these are really, really tangible impacts just based on these associations that are not really real and kind of based on stereotypes. So I would say the call to action, especially if you are an ally, is really interrogating that and speaking up if you do see that bias is an action for your colleagues. So
I want to leave with a personal note. What does it mean to you to fight for your hair, personally?
For me to fight for my hair, it means my daughter has the freedom to wear her hair the way she wants to and live her life, reflect back. It means that the characters that I embody become real in people's homes when they turn on their streaming television every night, and they start having a relationship with people who look like me, people who look like you. You know, it's especially as a Hollywood actress, it can be super lonely. I mentioned earlier today, just raising doesn't have to be a big voice, it could be literally a whisper. But on sets like the ones that I'm on, where people really just want to go with they don't want to rock the boat, it's really important to stand up for what you believe in any way you possibly can. So. Yeah,
how about you, Lauren? What does it mean for you to be in this fight as an individual, not just as a representative of Dove, but as a beautiful Black woman with a fierce mane of hair?
Thank you. And freedom, I think you said that, and it resonates with me, is I feel very liberated. Yeah. And I actually, until I was in this role, I didn't really wear my hair in the way, like, as big. I didn't wear braids. I didn't kind of switch up the styles because I had this internalized feeling of, will I be taken seriously? Mm-hmm. Will I be able to be in front of clients or agencies, and those sorts of things? And it took me being involved in the work that Dove does with the Crown Act to feel liberated. And it shouldn't have to be that I have to be in this type of role to do that. So I think there's a sense of liberation when you don't have to spend your mornings thinking about like how people are going to perceive you and whether what comes out of your mouth will be taken seriously because of how you wear your hair. And that's what I hope we can do, so that we have a lot of very powerful women here that have a lot of powerful things to say, that are thinking we shouldn't need to waste time and space and energy trying to conform when we can do so many more powerful things with that. So
it's definitely about that,
amen.
Right? I just want to reiterate that point. It is about the freedom.
It's about the
freedom. We live in a
freedom.
country where we're supposed to be free.
Yeah.
And it's about the freedom to wear your hair curly, straight, braids, bantu, whatever. I can do whatever and still be able to pursue my life, right?
Last year was my 30th year as a broadcast journalist, and I cannot thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I have to tell you, I said more than once in my career, I do not know why the size of my thighs or the curl of my hair should determine how I can give you the news.
That's a poem.
But I mean, in all honesty.
That's a poem. That's it. My
Can we just show some love to these two incredible women?
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate your time, your insight, your heart. You just keep coming back to the stage, girl.
Can't wait. I'll see you in about 20
She'll
minutes.
be back in 20 minutes. Actually, the good news is, guess what? It's lunchtime. We'll see you back here at 2:45. Go and enjoy some lunch.